Hello and welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. This one into the Sagittarius solar eclipse of the 4th of December. Now, solar eclipses have a 6-month duration of influence, but of course there are other planetary connections going on at the moment the eclipse occurs. So once I've outlined what I feel the broad influence of this eclipse will be, I then will share with you the event chart, and then please stay with me. I'll go through each of the 12 zodiac signs to tell you what I feel the next half year will be for you, whether it's from the perspective of your sun or your ascendant. It's up to you. You can choose which. But thank you so much for joining me. Now, this particular event is very significant because it's the last in a series that's gone between the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius over the last couple of years. If you remember, on the 19th of November we had a Taurus lunar eclipse, and this is the last of these mutable eclipses that's going to occur, because now we're moving into a series that goes on for the next 2 years between the signs of Taurus and Scorpio. So Sagittarius energy is very free-spirited. It's the 9th zodiac sign. It's mutable, so flexible, but of course it is a fire sign. But this particular event does bring together a lot of very, very sparky energy. Now, if you are new to my channel, I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. That means every time I drop a video on YouTube, you will get an alert. Also, you can choose to subscribe for your free daily written horoscope by clicking on the link beneath this video. I've been writing these for over 25 years. And I write for some of the biggest platforms in the world. So why not get your example fired to your device each morning? And of course, year 2022 is now ever fast approaching. If you want to get your personal forecast for next year based on your natal information of time, date and place of birth, and ascend above this zodiac forecast, you can do so and get a character analysis and get 30% off and get the rest of this year free if you order now. Please see the link below. This will give you searing insights into your personal astrological journey. But back to the event. So it occurs on the 4th of December, and in the United Kingdom that's at 7:42 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, so GMT or Universal Central Time. And if you look on the screen now, you can see where it's going to be occurring in your particular location. Thank you so much for seeing that. But based on the Greenwich chart, showing on the screen now the event wheel. And you can see that the ascendant is actually in Sagittarius as well, and it's combining in a very close conjunction with the moon and also the sun. Also Mercury is very close by as well. So this gives this particular event huge vibrancy. And the sign of Sagittarius is no slouch when it comes to personality. It's very much about being free-spirited, independent-minded, it's inquiring, it loves travel, it can be risk-taking. And this particular decan, the second decan, because you can see from the wheel that it occurs at 12 degrees 21 minutes, is ruled by Mars, which is very Aries influenced. So that brings a greater sense of urgency. Also, Mercury is, of course, a very quick-witted and agile energy. It's very much to do with our thinking, but also to do with our communication. But it can also be to do with distribution, travel. And Mercury is actually in detriment in the sign of Sagittarius. So there is a bit of a risk here that with the impulsive energies that are brought to this situation by it being in the second decan, very Mars influenced, that we could say something rather quickly with the energy of Mercury here. But there is another issue as well, because Rastaban, a fixed star, is very, very close to this event. Now Rastaban has the energy of Saturn, Mars and Jupiter combined. It can be very impulsive. And also you'll see on the wheel that Mars and Jupiter are in a square. Mars is actually in one of its two home zones beyond Aries of Scorpio. It's the traditional ruler of Scorpio, and it's actually forging a gorgeous link with both Pluto, the modern ruler of Scorpio, and also Venus, which are in that very tight conjunction, and that will be ongoing through to the end of this year, because Venus goes retrograde on the 19th of December. So very closely tucked together in the sign of Capricorn. So Mars allying with Venus and Pluto could be very, very good for very committed relationships. And anything to do with a business relationship that's working well could really prosper from this particular event. But Mars squaring with Jupiter is a much more risk-taking influence. It pushes us to live in the moment, to be much more impulsive. Mars is the planet of instant gratification, and in the sign of Scorpio, that can be very sensual. Now, of course, Jupiter's in the sign of friendship, so maybe as we approach Christmas but go into this new year, the energy that we're all going to be experiencing is quite fired up. We're wanting excitement, but we're also wanting freedom, just at a time when COVID is reminding us that yes, we may have to live with it, but it can still be a very important factor in our ability to move around freely. There are going to be regional, state-wise, country-wise lockdowns as different phases of the disease, the infection, play out. So I think this event is essentially saying, with the part of fortune, along with the moon, the sun, Mercury, all in the sign of Sagittarius, but all in the first house, which is very Aries in itself, with that second decan rulership of Mars, with the Rastaban fixed star, which is very, very risk-taking, but can be a little bit unstable and can lead to accidents. The other thing that we need to take into account is that this gathering of energy across the part of fortune, the moon, the sun and Mercury, and also the ascendant in Sagittarius, is forging a quincunx with Uranus. Uranus in this particular chart is in the 5th house of pleasures. So I think that points again towards a desire to push back against all the limitations over the last couple of years and live life on our terms. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be something that gives us entirely what we want. With freedom comes responsibility. But I think this chart is so revved up around enjoyment, indulgence, with Venus and Pluto so closely together. Although Saturn is actually forging a very positive link, a very stabilizing link, so if we can honor our freedoms, push out a little bit more, do things in a way which works not just for us but for others too, then we get a nice balance between the two principles. But if we're wanting to do things rather recklessly, then that is going to reap an effect. There's cause and effect. So I think the quincunx with Uranus is kind of in the sign of Taurus, is pushing us to be much more conscious about how we use the world's natural resources. But this particular chart, I think, is very much about having a party, quite honestly. And if we can get together in a way that we weren't able to get together last Christmas with certain loved ones, that's something that we're all going to really appreciate. But over the next 6 months, I think we just need to be aware that as the energy of the eclipse series between the signs of Taurus and Scorpio develop, it's very much more about thinking about resources, thinking about consumption, thinking about material issues. We're seeing inflation spiking up. There was some concerning news about inflation in the States recently. It wasn't expected that it was going to be 6%. So if these inflationary pressures are pointing towards an ending of a period where things were very free and easy between the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius, not just in terms of the consumption of resources, but also free and easy in terms of the sharing of information, because they're mutable. And that's where I feel Mercury being in a quincunx with Uranus is really quite interesting. We're just reminded to take care about how we share information, and I think it's going to become more earthy and more about proving things in a more factual way. That's the period we're moving into, which I actually think will be good for us. We're moving into a more realistic phase of the journey of personkind. But this particular event could be very, very exciting. It certainly will be great for partying over the Christmas season where possible, but I think it could lead to a spike, if I'm really honest, in COVID infections, because I think people are so weary from having their freedoms limited. You know, the natural desire to connect with others is so incredibly strong, and I think, you know, it's just a human instinct that we want to hug people, we want to shake people's hands, we want to spend time with people. Having social interaction is very good for the soul. And yet, with that glorious link between Mars, Venus and Pluto, if there is a romantic relationship which is going well in your situation, it's likely to be hot, hot and hot. Mars does forge a really sweet link with Neptune, however. So if you are someone, and with Mars in the 11th house of the collective, if you are somebody who wants to be mindful of those who are less fortunate, then this can be a great opportunity to do something really positive and embrace the old-fashioned, more spiritual values of the Christmas season. But over the next 6 months, our desire to be freer, to travel more, to engage where we find information more freely is going to be strong, but the direction of travel is really going to bring us much more down to earth, and that's going to become really obvious to us as we get to the end of April and we have that next Taurus eclipse. Now this is a total solar eclipse. It's going to be total in Antarctica. So we're going to have to travel a long way to see it. For everyone else it will be partial, and of course that won't be visible for everyone in all places. Now please stay with me for your individual zodiac sign forecast, beginning with Aries. Well, I have to be honest, Aries, I think that this event is right up your street because it has so many attributes to it which are very much in keeping with your zodiac sign. You love to take the initiative, you love to be on the front foot, you like fresh themes and strands because it gives you a sense of renewal and excitement, and that's precisely what you're going to be desiring over the next 6 months. But if it has been very difficult for you to break out and travel or pursue a higher educational course or do some training or move around in your job, I think that's what you're really going to be craving over this next 6 month period. But I think what Uranus is saying for you particularly is that whatever plans you develop or whatever expectations you have, especially around investment or and particularly around overseas investment, don't be too quick to make snap decisions. This is a very impulsive solar eclipse, and it's going to create an awful lot of drama and excitement, and initially I think that's going to be really good for you. It just depends really on COVID. If COVID wasn't there, I think you would really be darting around in all sorts of exciting ways over this next half year. But I think you just need to bear in mind the use of your resources. Can you use them more effectively? But your desire to travel, break out, be more free-spirited and adventurous is going to be very strong. Now, if you're in a love relationship, for example, which isn't working very well, then this could be a sign that you will break free from that. If you're in a job that's lost its luster a long time ago, I think you're really going to be much more restless and much more in the mood to make some fundamental changes in your life. Now, Taurus, For you, having Mars in your opposite sign still and having Venus and Pluto in your 9th house could be really revealing around your love situation, because the gathering of energy for you in the sign of Sagittarius is in your 8th house, which in itself is very Scorpionic. The influences themselves may be in Sagittarius, which is free-spirited, but how it plays out for you is about where you're most devoted. If you're really devoted to someone, well, the next 6 months could really be so hot and exciting and really thrilling for you. But it is important that you feel that you can be a free spirit. That's what Uranus has been asking you and encouraging you to embrace over the last few years. And of course the gathering of energy in the sign of Capricorn, the 9th house, that too. So what I'm feeling with this particular event for you is that you need some drama in your life. And if your life is lacking of drama, lacking of excitement, you may almost create some issues in order to create a bit of excitement in your situation. You need some combustion. You need a flame of excitement to really grip you. That's what you're going to be craving over the next 6 months. But if you are an entrepreneurial type, this could be a very exciting time, providing you're not too reckless in your approach. Now, Gemini, having Mercury right beside the eclipse is interesting, because all of the influences from the part of fortune through to Mercury are in your 7th house, relationships. So that's the key area for you over the next 6 months. Now, of course, you do have Saturn and Jupiter in your sector of expansion and truth. So the thing you're going to be looking for in any relationship is how sincere it is. But then having Venus and Pluto together in your 8th house, that's quite hot, that's steamy, that's wanting some kind of deep connection. But because of your quick thinking personality, I feel that relationships need to be quite inclusive, they need to be quite mutual, collaborative, going backwards and forwards. You need that repartee to really make you feel alive. So what you're wanting is someone who's fun to be with, quick-witted like you, playful, perhaps in some ways even mentally combative. But then there's another part of you that I think is really craving something much deeper. And this might be quite a new experience for you that's evolving in your situation. I think it's been evolving for some while. It's obviously a lot to do with the energy of Pluto, but having Venus there, that's interesting. And Mars in your sector of work. Hey, is there someone that you're going to encounter in your work or an everyday situation, the supermarket, the bus queue, those places that people do meet and start talking. I actually had a client who told me that she met someone in a supermarket, which is fantastic. You know, there are all sorts of ways to reach out to people, but don't dismiss a situation as having no prospects simply because it's rather mundane. Actually, I think those kind of ordinary places could be where you get chatting to someone, and having that sort of to-ing and fro-ing in the dialogue is really what you need. But then it needs to dive deep, but it also needs to speak to a sense of truth about what you need in your life. So I don't feel that you're in the mood to give away your power in a relationship too easily, but in general, collaboration and cooperation are the two bywords for you over the next 6 months. Which brings us to Cancer. So Cancer, there's a lot of energy here in your 6th house, which is to do with practicalities. It's to do with pets, aunts and uncles, our work patterns, our diets, our nutrition, our exercise at a physical level. It's to do with how organised our worlds are. Now that all sounds profoundly dull and boring, doesn't it? But with Mars in your 5th house of romance, forging an amazing link to Venus and Pluto, do you know, it could be through your work or through a very ordinary situation that you get chatting to someone who really makes your pulse race. But you are often supremely gifted in organizing things, managing things, whether it's the home, whether it's a business, whether it's a department. You have a gift for that. So what I would say is, with all this sixth house energy, don't feel that there aren't areas that you could still evolve around or improve around. And it could come down to information. Virgo is, of course, very much to do with purity. So if there's parts of your existence which can be purified without being, to the point that you're not having any pleasures whatsoever, then do think about it. For example, we can feel that we have a good diet, but where does the source of the food come from? If this is the type of thing that you could improve upon, or cooking more stuff from scratch, growing some of your own food, doing a job which gives you personal satisfaction that you're helping others. Very important with the sixth house. But I think there is a real sense of excitement around this eclipse as well. So, where things are going to lead over the next 6 months could absolutely delight you. But some kind of reorganization, improvement around your health and fitness, I think are very much in the astral works for you. Now, Leo, having such a lot of energy in your fifth house is grand for the run up to Christmas, because fifth house is very much to do with play, sociability, interaction, charisma, warmth, affection, and this chart is full of it. But of course, Uranus is right at the top of your situation in your 10th house. So what may play out for you in the quincunx is that you're wanting a job which allows you to showcase your talents. And if you're not able to do that, that could be stifling you and killing off your passion a little bit. So passion is important to you, but I think you need to embrace the potential that this eclipse gives you to really go into the new year with a sense that you're strutting your stuff, you're showing people what a mesmeric personality you are. It's a chance to draw goodness to you. If you're single, well, all this fifth house stuff is great, but with Mars, of course, in the fourth house, collaborating with Pluto and Venus in the sixth, that points towards maybe getting creative in your home, making some physical changes, having a lot of drive to improve things. And I just feel that, when it comes to your work situation, if you're still a little bit unsure about how that's going to go forwards, the keynotes for you really is, don't look to do things that are too mundane. You need to be really stimulated and at the heart and centre of things. If you're just going through the processes, it probably isn't going to be enough for you. Now, Virgo, well, I think you're going to be moving over the next 6 months, and if you are moving, it's going to be improving your situation, whether it's downsizing, upsizing, building an extension, ripping out a kitchen, putting a new one in, fitting central heating, adding to your family, starting a family. A lot of energy around the base of your situation. And what you're after really is a greater sense of security, but perhaps also some growth around that security as well. It's not just being safe and defensive. You want to be going outwards as well, and that energy is coming from Mars in its terrific angle to Venus and Pluto. So if you're single and you're wanting to meet that relationship which really speaks to the deeper part of your nature, don't feel that you can't have fun in part of the process of getting to know someone, because you most certainly can. I think some Virgo people will even start working from home if you've not already done that, and actually can end up finding it's a very enjoyable experience. But what I would resist is change for the sake of change. And the reason I say that is because the collective that's in Sagittarius, your fourth house, along with the ascendant, is actually in that quincunx with Uranus in your ninth house. So change for the sake of change may not necessarily address some deeper craving you have for more meaning or more security or a greater emotional contact with somebody or others. So I think maybe Uranus in the ninth house could inform your situation through new knowledge. Maybe someone you're going to become much more aware of can give you information or guidance. It could be, watching YouTube videos, which will help you to grow in terms of your emotional being, and that could be very positive. Now, Libra, of course, the collective of energy in your third house is very exciting because you're an air sign, and an air sign loves to communicate. So this chart is suggesting the next 6 months is going to see lots of interaction with neighbours, maybe with a sibling. Because Venus and Pluto are combining in your fourth house, maybe there is going to be some kind of thawing in a relationship which has not been going very well. Pluto has created a lot of politics around your emotional and family life over the last 12 or 13 years, since 2008. It really depends on where your planets are in the sign of Libra. And it may be that you don't just have the Sun in Libra, because Mercury and Venus are often very close to where the Sun is. Not always, but often. So what I would say is that if there has been some situations that have been profoundly disappointing, maybe some kind of revival is possible with Venus alongside Pluto. Maybe you're going to become even clearer in your mind about what's not working, and that's because maybe you've been too agreeable for too long. And Uranus in the 8th house is about devotion, but Uranus is about freedom. It's also about truth. So if something isn't working, where you want to express your ideas, your belief systems, the third house is challenged by the 8th house, where it's very close to people. It's much more intimate, scorpionic. And of course you do have Mars in your second house, which is very, very good for finance. I would say there could be some good fortune for you linked to a property, maybe even a contract, maybe even a work-based contract that can see you getting that greater security that you want in terms of your home life and have been searching for some while. But third house energy is very nimble. It's very fleeting. It's brilliant for getting on with lots of different types of people. It's very Gemini-like. Having Mercury there as well means that your ability to interact with people skillfully is definitely boosted over the next 6 months. But I don't feel that you're going to be kidded around the emotional dimension because of all the lessons over recent years. A lot of Libran people write to me about this, and as you know, my ascendant is 23 degrees Libra, so I've experienced this very much myself. But some of those changes around contracts, the home, can be quite fortunate with this, but it's important with third house energy not to get out of touch with our emotion. But I think that Venus and Pluto will probably keep you and me real in that regard. Which brings us to Scorpio. Well, Scorpio, I feel that there's a fantastic opportunity for you to do better financially over the next 6 months. The only downside perhaps will be where you need to work very closely with someone else, and their take on a situation or their approach is very different to yours. But if there is a collaborative effort going on, then a partnership could work well. If there isn't, it may be that you're wanting to go a different route in terms of how you're earning money, and a partner may not agree with that. You may want to give up a safe job to do something that's more challenging, more risk-taking. But this is a very scorpionic chart because of Mars being so strongly emphasized in it through the rulership of Rastaban, and also of the second decan of Sagittarius, and also because you have Mars in its dignity in your sign, forging a brilliant link with your modern ruler of Pluto. So this is giving you enormous encouragement, this opportunity to flourish over the next 6 months around resources. But I would just say you need to free yourself from a relationship which isn't working well, or compromise on one where it is going well and knowing it can't, solely be on your terms, which I feel anyway. Sagittarius, well, for you, what an opportunity to burst into 2022, demonstrating your individuality, your flair, the ability you have to absorb ideas swiftly, the way you can just flex, take things on board and pivot and move very nimbly on your feet to reorientate yourself towards opportunities that aren't necessarily always planned ones. Sometimes things happen very spontaneously in life. The issue here is Uranus, because it's in your 6th house of work. And if you have really gone through a period of change or uncertainty, quite likely with COVID, or just feeling that you're yearning for a change as good as a rest, because after all, your sign's very much about needing fresh experiences all the time, then I think go for it. Reinvent yourself, give yourself a dynamic new makeover, clear the decks. I think there's a lot of opportunity to power forwards very, very dynamically. Maybe a past skill or a past association can still be very good for you financially. If you've been working very hard over a long period of time, Mars is linked with Venus and Pluto, could bring some loot to you where you've really invested in the past. But I think some new strands are coming in. You're going to be wanting to try different things. I think of all the zodiac signs, perhaps apart from Gemini, your attention span might be the lowest. But that's not a fault, it's a strength. But the key is you need to keep embracing those new experiences, and COVID's made that very difficult for a lot of people. So if you have got a lot of pent-up frustration from the last couple of years, I think now you're going to want to really go for it in a much more dynamic way. And remember, Mars is in a square with your ruler, Jupiter, and so Mars is in your sector of instinct, deep feelings. And so if something's really calling out to you, you're going to want to drive towards it with tremendous urgency and excitement. Wow! I'm glad I got my Mars in Sagittarius. Which brings us to Capricorn. So the collective for you, Capricorn, is in your 12th house. That makes this quite a lot more complex for you. Now, of course, Mars is in a very sociable part of your situation, and Venus and Pluto combining, which is giving you a real added charisma, a glow. You can draw people to you, and it could be that you're going to draw someone to you in a clandestine or low-key or secretive way because of all that energy in your 12th house. But that's also saying to you that it's going to be important for you to manage this solar eclipse, that you don't deny your vulnerabilities. Now, you're one of the Zodiac's steadiest citizens. Your forbearance, your hard work, your perseverance, your application, your steadiness when things are difficult and other people are losing their heads. It's the stuff of astral legend. But it doesn't mean to say that you don't have a more feeling side. But are you in touch with it? Now, it's a rhetorical question because you might be someone who's very much in touch with your personal development and journey. But another Capricorn could be someone who's lived more in the material world. So if you're someone who's very much into healing, personal growth, any kind of spiritual strands in your situation, this is a fantastic solar eclipse for you over the next 6 months. If you're someone who's much more tied up with achievement, materialism, defending pride, being a bit uncomfortable with demonstrating vulnerabilities or weaknesses, this is pushing you to integrate the more fragile side of your nature into part and parcel of who you are, because we've all got stuff, every single person, but it's very important for you to be respected as being capable, hardworking, adaptable. And I just feel, don't see it as a weakness to let the softer and more gentle and spiritual side come into your nature, into your situation. If you're great at painting, or you love making film, or you're a photographer, this is a sensational solar eclipse for you, and you can really do very, very well over the next few months. But I feel if there is a relationship around you, whether it's romantic or a friendship, that's not so good, it's not so healthy, it's stealing your energy in some way, someone who's either very needy and doesn't give any consideration to your situation, I think that those people could be leaving your life over the next 6 months. So a bit of a clear out of any dead wood, but particularly people who are not very loyal, don't keep your confidences, maybe, bestow upon you occasionally faint praise, which is just actually a mask for their criticism or jealousy. I think you need to clear out those people. You need people who really are helping you to grow at a deeper emotional and spiritual level. Which brings us to Aquarius. Now, the interesting thing about this event, Aquarius, is that for you, the collective in Sagittarius is the 11th house, very much in keeping with the energy of your signs. We're talking about the future, we're talking about higher values, we're talking about the collective, person, kind, working together in a way which helps us all. So your friendship sector essentially is given a huge boost over the next 6 months. But it won't work with those people who cramp your style, because Sagittarius energy very much about free-spiritedness, just like Aquarius. But with Uranus in the 4th house, if there's anyone who sort of like really, wants all of your attention, all of your time, and you can't really find any space, that could be something that you find more challenging. But people who have very similar outlooks to you, people who have very, passionate beliefs about where society and where the earth and where the resources of the earth are heading, you're going to be getting together with those people in a wonderful way. If you're someone who's also quite focused on business and career, Mars right at the top of your chart in the 10th house, linking with Venus and Pluto, suggests all that hard work that's gone in over a very long period of time can come back to you. And that's really, really exciting. And I just feel that you are due a break, because Venus and Pluto, obviously in the 12th house now, could point towards some deeper stuff surfacing around a relationship which has been very painful. Maybe there is going to be a separation. But because this is such a future-orientated solar eclipse for you, you will get the benefits eventually, even if there is a separation. So even though that may sound a little glib, and I'm sorry, I really try very hard never to be glib, what I'm saying here is that Venus and Pluto in your 12th house could bring into the open some realities which you do need to get to grips with. And having Uranus in the 4th house competing with that bank of energy in the 11th house of the future is just saying, look, just stick with the people that work for you. And if that does mean that something has to make way, however difficult that is, you will get through it. But equally, Venus conjunct Pluto could reveal a secret admirer, a secret lover, or bring someone back into your world who you thought was gone. Now, Pisces, finally, such a collection of energy in your 10th house, so your chance to shine professionally over the next 6 months is awesome. You also have Mars in your 9th, great for expanding horizons, linking with Venus and Pluto in the 11th. So, what I would say here is that who, as much as what you know, could be important in terms of work and contracts. But I think also you want to work in an environment where you can connect with people. Just doing well professionally or having status on its own probably won't be enough. Uranus continues to push you to feel a need for greater stimulation. If you're doing a job which is boring, however worthy it is, even if you're helping people, if it's boring you, it's not really switching you on mentally, then you need to make a change. But this chart suggests you can make a change and you can make it work. It really gives you an opportunity. I just feel for you, Saturn in the 12th house is the catch, because that's the influence that could be testing your self-worth, your self-belief, your confidence, and could see you wanting to stick rather than twist because it just feels safe and familiar. And I totally understand that, because when we are feeling much more vulnerable and raw, it's much more difficult to take on big challenges. But if you can come to terms with the parts of your nature which you feel maybe a little frail, or the skill sets that aren't quite as evolved or developed as they could be, just be real about them and say, okay, maybe those are the limitations I feel I have. That doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't try to go to some interviews or think about your own business. Have the belief that life can change and evolve for you in a more dynamic and bigger and grander way, because it can. It may just all turn out exactly as you don't expect. But being a mutable sign, and with all this mutable energy in Sagittarius, that's fine with you. If it doesn't work out, you can switch and move again. But keep the desire to fulfill yourself in terms of work or your worldly role. Don't settle, is the punchline for this solar eclipse, Pisces. That brings to an end the interpretations for each of the 12 zodiac signs. It's been such a pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay safe and take care.